I know you mentioned another interesting concept called one metric that matters.
The one metric that matters actually is the North Star of that specific team towards that task which they're progressing towards. Metrics, I would say, could change based on the company, right? For one company, referral might not be relevant.
How often do you look back and see whether these metrics are correct, or do I want to define new metrics?
Staring at the metrics doesn't give me anything, right? But I think the most important thing is to have a dashboard of all the metrics.
Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel Everything Product. In this channel, we talk about latest technologies with the product mindset. We have a topic which is very near and dear to every product manager. We'll be talking about product metrics, or otherwise called as key performance indicators. And in this video, we'll be starting with why are metrics needed at all, and then we'll be talking about North Star metrics, one metric that matters, L1, L2 metrics, and how as product managers you should be tracking different metrics and stuff. So Sidhu, let me start with a simple question. Why do you think metrics are needed for any product?
Yeah, I'll start with a statement here, right? Metrics are the bread and butter for any product, and also part of any product manager's life here. So metrics would help us do a lot of different things, right? So it'll help us tell us if you are in the right direction or not. Are we reaching our long-term goal or not? Is it helping to achieve the business goal or not? Also, they help us set the product roadmap, evolve the product strategy, understand the user behavior, evaluate success of the product, if it's successful or not, measure the impact of the product features, and also maybe test hypothesis and experimentation. So there are a lot of different things what we can do with a product metric, and also it will help us know if we are reaching the long-term vision, the goal which we have set for a company or not. So let's do this in a fun way, right? So we'll maybe create a company which is called Everything Food. So we'll start with a problem, and then we'll get into the details of what the company is. So me staying away from my home, it's very rare I could find food similar to the food which my mom cooks. So I've always craved that. So I want to create a company which kind of solves that problem, where it connects home food, people who cook home food with people who crave home food. And let's say that the company, what we create, right, we'll name it as Everything Food, similar to our channel, which is called Everything Product. And the vision statement for this company is create a world where everybody has access to home cooked food, right? So that's a ambitious goal to have, right? Like, so many people around the world and so many home cooks around the world. And when we look at platforms like this, they typically tend to have they're called three-way marketplaces, where we have cooks who cook food and list their dishes on the platform. There's also people who go in and search and order food. So that's the second. And the third one is we need a driver network where people come in and deal with that products. To make it simple for this case, let's maybe assume there's two of these users, the cooks and also the people who order food. And maybe we'll get into defining what, as Fanny previously said, right? We'll define the North Star metric, and then we'll get into the one metric that matters, and we'll get into the ARM, right? Pirate metrics, and then we'll look at the level 1, level 2 for this product. Okay, Fanny, let's maybe quickly start with the North Star metric here.
Sure, Sidhu. So you said the vision basically is create a world where everybody can access their home cooked food. And we are creating an app for that. So when we look at the North Star metric, what we are trying to define here is one metric that can help our engineering teams, our product managers, or our operations teams strive towards achieving that. And especially for our app, the North Star metric that I could think of is number of orders. So if we can continue to grow the number of orders from the time of launch, and if we can continually grow that on an annual basis, that's what we are striving towards. And that would be our North Star metric. What do you think?
Yeah, that's right. So I think this metric will basically help us reach our goal, right? Connecting all of the home cooks with all of the people who crave food, right? And also make us progress one step every time towards that overall goal which we wanted to do. So maybe to give people a more better understanding of what this North Star metric is, right? We'll go through some examples of popular companies. Let's maybe look at Spotify. The North Star metric for Spotify is time spent listening, right? So they want more and more people listen on that platform. And when we'll take the example of Airbnb, it's the number of nights booked. The more people book on Airbnb, the more they get closer to their vision. And then we can look at the example of Uber, right? The number of rides completed, right? Similar to ours, the number of orders or the number of meals delivered. Then YouTube could be total watch time. So these are some examples I can think of. How about you?
Yeah, that's true. Like all of these, like if we see, like they're helping the company to say that, okay, this is where we are striving towards. A couple of others I could think of is, let's say Facebook. Facebook has, let's say, daily active users across all of their apps, let's say Instagram, WhatsApp, etc. I think WhatsApp also looks at the number of messages a user sends to tell how a customer is successfully utilizing their app. Cool,
Yeah.
Sidhu. Now that we spoke about the North Star, right? I know you mentioned another interesting concept called one metric that matters. Explain what is that metric?
Yeah. So I'll take a step back, Funny. So we said that North Star metric is what basically, is defined for the whole company, right? So maybe let's ask a question of why do we need that North Star metric? It basically having one metric that drives towards the vision will align all the teams towards that vision. It'll give transparency and also help people understand what the customer values, right? Like what does the customer value? Uh, and so that is good at a company level, but imagine their teams are working at different levels of the funnel, right? There could be a team who's working on acquisition, there could be a team who's working on onboarding, or there could be a team who's working on platform. So the one metric that matters actually is the North Star of that specific team towards that task which they're progressing towards, which ultimately ties back to the overall North Star and the vision, right? So that's how I look at is the one metric that matters is. So that's the ultimate metric for that specific team or function which is working towards that goal. And these one metric that matters could be defined with the pirate metrics, right? As we initially said. So these pirate metrics, right? So for people to understand what pirate metrics are, so they are AARRR. So they are acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, and referral. So we'll get into the details of each of these and give examples of how we'll do it with our hypothetical company, which is everything food. But before we get into that, right? These metrics, I would say, could change based on the company, right? For one company, referral might not be relevant. For one another company, activation might not be relevant. So it might be changed, but end of the day, it basically we use these metrics to move the needle towards the North Star or the vision what we have. So let's maybe look at one of this to get started with acquisition. So Funny.
So for acquisition, right, what I would anticipate here is we are giving two different apps, one for the cooks and one for the end customers. And let's say in this case, let's call them foodies. So the acquisition for us here is the number of app downloads on both of them. What do you think?
Yeah, that's right. So I think that will help us understand how many people are actually trying to find an app for the problem which we are trying to solve, right? So once they find that, they download it, and then that's where we measure the acquisition of that app, right? And then the next one would be activation, right? So activation basically captures the moment when a user first gets value from the product, right? So that's usually the moment that when the first user does the thing which the product is built for. So for this example, maybe in both of the personas which we are looking at, right? The first one is the cooks. Maybe activation could be creating a profile and also listing the dishes which they offer. So that could be, and maybe an example metric could be uh, anybody who lists more than 5 dishes we could consider that as an activated cook. On the customer side, right? People coming in, looking, searching for the dishes they want and placing orders, right? And maybe activation could be one of the metric could be a customer who has placed more than 2 or 3 orders, right? So that will let us know that the customer searched for a problem, downloaded the app, created a profile, and now he's actually getting value by ordering that. So that's the activation piece. So next, let's move on to retention, Funny. So what do you think on the retention side?
Yep. So now let's say we have both the cooks and the foodies, right? Cooks came and created the dishes and stuff. So now in order for us to like continue to have them stay with the product, what do we need to do? And that's what the retention metrics would define. So in both of these use cases, probably the daily active users or the weekly active users and the monthly active users. It could vary based on the persona here, because if we think of cooks, we would probably want to have them as like daily active users, because the more cooks that we have, the more orders that we could get from the foodies. From the foodie standpoint as well, we'll continue to definitely monitor the same metrics to see like whether they're coming on a weekly basis to continue to order. And then we'll also probably look at the number of orders at the same time to see whether they're liking our product or not. What do you think?
Yeah, that's right. So I think retention is also pretty important, right? And it could change based on the product and the use case which you're trying to do. For one company, weekly active users could be very important metric. For another company, daily active users could be very important metric. So it basically is defined by what your North Star is and what you want to drive overall towards the basic overall vision. After the retention, then comes the referral piece, right? So referral basically measures your product's ability to induce customers to advocate for your product and bring in other customers in, right? So there were multiple ways which companies have done referral before. Initially, initial days of PayPal, when you created an account, if you brought in your friend, you would you get $10 and your friend gets $10. So that was a very big strategy which drove more customers towards PayPal. I think initially Cash App also did that, right? So Cash App did it, and now you can look at brokerages like Robinhood, which gives you $25, or gives you a stock and your friend a stock when you bring in more customers. So I think that's also a key piece where you can acquire more and more customers, right? And
Yep.
one of the metric for that could be number of referrals per user. So if you have a monetary policy, that could vary, and also there could be metrics of people just referring because they like the product, right? Even though they don't get money, right? So that also is something which we could measure as we go on.
One of the things that we also measure, right, is the NPS. So the net promoter score could also define how your customers are feeling about the product. Because in general, what is NPS, right? The net promoter score is a survey that we typically do, which has ratings from like 0 to 10. Anyone who is giving less than 2 is basically a detractor who's not liking your product. Or anyone who's like 3 to 7, I believe, is someone who's neutral, who's okay with the product. But the primary focus you would also have is from the customers who are doing 8 to 10. The more customers who are giving 8 to 10 for you, they are the customers who are basically strong supporters of your product and who are ready to recommend your product to their friends and family. And then another product metric that you could think of is also PRS, the product recommendation score. It's measured in a fairly similar way, but that basically tells whether a customer is liking the product or not. In this case, both the cooks and the foodies.
Yeah, and imagine this scenario where you are a product manager and the NPS score sucks. You have got a real problem, and you
No,
have
that's
to,
actually
really focus.
no,
Good
that's
thing,
actually a
right?
good
To
thing. Yeah.
understand.
I would be really happy if my NPS score is not that great, because that's basically telling me that, hey, there is a lot of enhancement that I could do to make my product better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So I think that's where this is an example of how we can make the product much better, right? When we look at these areas. So then we'll get into the last R here for the pirate metrics, which is revenue. So I think for any company, right, like onboarding, acquisition, retention, all of these are good, but end of the day, it has to make money to stay in business, right? So at some point it has to make money. So revenue basically is a key metric which drives business success, ultimate goal for all the other metrics which we have. So I'd say couple of different things, ways which we can measure revenue is dollar per, basically the dollar per user could be one of the metrics. That's revenue per customer, and also average order size. So the revenue per customer gives us an idea of how active the person is in ordering this stuff, and how much is he ordering and all of that stuff. And the average size basically gives us an idea of, is the person just ordering one thing which he came in for ordering, or is he adding maybe beverages, add-ons, appetizers, and all of this towards the order, and how big is the ticket size, and how can we increase the ticket size. So these two are the things which I can think of for our company, everything food.
Yep, that's true. Couple of other things that I could add here is we can also look at the cost per acquisition and the lifetime value as well. Because let's just say Sidhu is the foodie who comes to our app, and then we have multiple channels, marketing channels that we use to like get him to our app. And then let's say it costed us like somewhere between like $50 to $100 to get him. But now, let's say our lifetime value says that Sidhu is going to come and just order like $30 of food. That's not going to be of any use to us. But we need a customer who can stay with us for a longer period of time and give us higher revenues, which is the lifetime value of the customer. Those are a couple of other things that we could track as well to see how we are doing in terms of revenue.
Yeah,
cool.
That's right. So now we have defined our pirate metrics, right? Let's maybe also look at level 1, level 2 metrics. And I'd say people might be confused to by like, what are these metrics again coming into place? So maybe I'll set the stage for that, and we'll get into discussing what the level 1 and level 2 metrics are. Level 2 metrics, level 1 and level 2 metrics are metrics that basically tag along with the pirate metrics. What we have, and these basically help avoiding the gamification of the above metrics what we have, acquisition, activation, retention, and all of that stuff. And maybe we can get into those examples and see how these metrics will guard towards the leak of the top metrics what we have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so one of the examples here, funny, you were talking about the retention, right? So at retention, maybe let's assume that everything food, we are measuring weekly active users. That's right. So for weekly active users, let's assume that I'm the product manager and I'm looking at weekly active users, which are like 11 million, and that keeps at a steady pace for maybe 6 months, and I'm happy, right? Oh man, that's good. My team is doing good, and the retention is really good. But there could be possibly other scenarios where marketing is spending millions of dollars to acquire customers, and they just stay for 1 week and then leave after that. So imagine that happening for 6 months period, where we don't have one customer that is continuing for the whole 6 months, but the customers keep churning out and there are new customers coming, but people try out. So there's a leak, right? So we are not able to basically retain all the customers for the whole 6 month period. So I think the level 1 and level 2 metrics would help us understand that is the metric what we are measuring being gamified by other depending factors which are happening, or is it basically a standalone metric that's supporting towards our progress of the vision? What do you say?
Yeah, that makes sense, because sometimes some of these metrics could be telling an indication, but at the same time, there might be some, and I know I'll be using a different word, but like lagging metrics, right? So there could be some of the other metrics that are going down, but we are not observing it. So that's what I see as the L1 and L2 metrics, right? Where if you're not tracking them, it could be causing issue for us, but you don't have to track them all the time because they might not be defining your North Star metric. But these could be the indicators that tell that, hey, your metrics might be looking good, but you might be doing something wrong.
Yeah, and also another word is countermetrics, right? So there's a lot of different ways which we call it, I'd say. So maybe funny, let's do a quick recap here, right? Like we have discussed so many metrics, and people might not understand what the hierarchy is, like how they come in and what they are actually for. So first we started with a problem, and then we defined what the company is, what the vision for the company is. After doing that, we said that, okay, we'll pick a North Star metric, and this North Star will move us forward towards our vision. After picking North Star metric, then we said, okay, we'll say the metric which matters the most. We say that that's specific to the team, and it aligns with the motives of that specific team. And for that metrics, we went into the pirate metrics, which are acquisition, activation, retention, referral, and revenue. And then we also said that there are level two, level one, and level two metrics, which are more something like lagging indicators or counter metrics, which would help us uh, avoid the gamification of the metrics which we have defined in the pirate metrics. So this is the complete flow. What do you say?
Yeah, love it. It takes us from like the start to the end, and it'll make sure the product manager has an end-to-end control of what they're doing and how the product is performing. Love it. So Sidhu, let me ask this question. Now that we know all the metrics that we want to track, how we are tracking this, right? As a product manager, like how frequently do you start tracking these metrics?
Man, yeah, I have one screen completely occupied with metrics all the time. That's so, I'd say, yeah. Staring at the metrics doesn't give me anything, right? But I think the most important thing is to have a dashboard of all the metrics for your products, right? So I have it at a place where I look at all the metrics, and I try to look at the metrics on a week to week basis to gain insights and see how I can improve my product strategy to reach the goals which I have for that quarter, that month, or that year. How about you?
Yeah, similar. One thing we do on a daily basis is looking at our dashboard. So every day, the first thing that I come and do is have a look at the dashboard to see how it is performing. Like we look at the trends to say, okay, in the last week we were at 67%. Today, if I drop to something in 50s, which basically means something is going wrong. So come have a look at the dashboard to see, okay, is the same trend continuing, or is something good or something bad happened? This could be because of a number of things that we do, but that's something that we do. And at the same time, we also track our metrics very closely whenever we have some kind of releases planned. So let's say I released a product yesterday, and let's say I'm planning to do an A/B test. So we make sure to have the corresponding dashboards defined to say, hey, these are the metrics that are supposed to change because of this A/B test, and how are those metrics doing? Or let's say we'll completely launch this new feature to a whole new location or a whole new country. How is that impacting our current metrics and stuff? So probably daily, weekly, and every new initiative that we launch, we keep a close tab on the metrics.
Yeah, that's a really good example. And also I can give you an example, funny. So maybe we are doing podcasts, right? So we have been doing this for a while and we have started recently. So as a product managers, it's very hard for us to stay away from metrics. So we have defined metrics for our podcast too, right? So I won't get into the numbers of what it is, but uh, what is our North Star metric, right? So
Yeah. So at least when we started, right, the first thing that we were primarily looking at is the watch time. So like a watch time is a clear indicator to tell that our customers are liking our videos or continuing to watch the videos. That is probably the North Star metric that we added for our product. You want to talk about all the other metrics that we're tracking as well?
yeah, that's right. So we also track a week over week watch time, and we track subscribers and all of that stuff. But I would say subscribers is just a vanity metric. It's a good number to tell that, okay, I have this many other subscribers, but it's the main goal of why we actually started this podcast is to educate people about product thinking and talk about different product things. So the more people watching our videos, the more time they spend watching our videos, helps us know if we are providing the right value to the people or not. So I think that's our North Star metric, where we are basically saying, okay, the more watch time, the more people watching our videos, the more insights they are gaining and entertaining they are feeling, let's say.
Slightly different point of view on the number of subscribers, Sidhu, is it's to a certain extent a vanity metric, if you look at it that way. But at the same time, in order for us to drive our North Star metric of watch time, the more subscribers we have, the more watch time we will get. So the way I would look at the number of subscribers is probably the one metric that matters for a specific team. So in our team here, right? Let's say if you're continuing to increase the subscribers, which basically means the subscribers will have more watch time, which is eventually impacting the North Star metrics. So that's one way to look at it as well.
Yeah, as we talk through this, maybe we should have people responsible for different areas. One person responsible for the content, right? Make it engaging. One person responsible for the growth as a growth PM, right? We should experiment in doing those things also. So yeah, I think this is a fun way of looking at it, man. And people who are actually watching this video, right? So think of, all, we have talked about a framework and hierarchy of different things, right? Think about anything that you're doing in your life, right? Come up with a vision, come up with different metrics, and keep tracking that. I think doing that will help you better track your product and also get that product mindset as you go.
Yep. Sidhu, let me ask this question, right? So you talked about, in our channel at least, the North Star metric is, let's say, watch time, and one of the other metric could be number of subscribers. How do you look at the other activity, right? Like, let's say people might be liking, commenting, or subscribing. For anyone who's watching, please subscribe to our channel. How do you look at all of these additional things within the channel? Quick bite there.
Yeah, so I'd say that that's actually engagement, right? So I think what that helps us understand is, right, okay, people are liking our content and they're also engaging, right? They want to support our work. I would say that's sharing is referral. Liking actually shows this on other people's feeds, right? In LinkedIn and all of that stuff. That's also more of referral. And also people commenting is basically more feedback to us to improve our content, or giving us prizes on how the content is and all of that stuff. I think these are also very important for us so that we could improve our channel as a better channel and provide more value to users. So anybody who's watching this, I'd say please comment and give as much feedback as possible. We don't mind even if that's negative. We want to take that and make it better. The ultimate goal is to provide a content which engage people and which gives insights to the people.
Yep. So these are basically our engagement metrics could come anywhere between like the activation and retention as well, depending on where the customer is. Like, let's say someone who came and subscribed to our channel today, which basically could be an activation for them. Or maybe it could be a retention if a customer has been staying for like quite some time. Cool. Let me ask this. Going back to our work, right? How we track our metrics and stuff. What are the specific tools that you use to track your metrics?
Yeah, so for most of the stuff which I've used, Funny, uh, Google Analytics, because any UI based tool, I've used Google Analytics, which is pretty straightforward, where you actually set up Google Analytics and you have already defined metrics, and you get dashboards and all of that stuff, which gives you daily active users, monthly active users, the people visiting specific pages, specific features, and all of that stuff. And you can also create reports that are emailed to certain people or stakeholders. So it's a very good tool for me to use for products which I've worked, which are mostly web-based. There are also products which I've worked, which are B2B and all of that stuff. For them, it's basically either having Excel sheets or Tableau, where you pull in all the data reports and have the visualization, create a dashboard. And NetSuite was also another thing where I used to create these dashboards. So these are some of the things which came out as I was working towards different products. How about you?
Yeah, similar. So my product is also like customer facing, but at the same time, I don't use like real-time dashboards. I think Google Analytics, you probably look at it at a real time as well, right? I look at with some delay, like probably like few hour delay to a day. So I primarily use Tableau, and we also use Amplitude in order to track the data. And actually, Sidhu, let me ask this question. So I've seen different ways of tracking customers, right? Again, at the end of the day, it's the data and it's the metrics for us. what other tools do you use probably to like track the customer behavior? Do you use something like how is the customer moving their mouse on their websites and stuff? Do you use all of that data as well as your metrics?
Yeah, so there are certain metrics I use, Sunny. Where, like you have the customer journey map, right? So there's the complete flow of different ways where you can go in the website itself, right? Like you have the home page, then you go into a certain feature, and then you go into multiple pages down. So the way Google Analytics actually provides and lays that on in a way where it tells you how many people dropped off after that step. So maybe 100 people come to the home page and there's a 20% drop, and then people move on to the second feature, and there's a 20% drop, and then they move on to the second feature. So this will actually help me understand that, okay, if there are 20% drop on the home page, these people might be the people who are not finding what they want, right? So that's a pretty good example of one thing which I track. And maybe I'll
Yes.
talk to these people to understand, okay, why are you coming to this? Maybe they might have ended up by a wrong referral, or they might be looking at information which is completely different. Maybe, they're not finding the information. I think that's the insight which I want to look at. I don't want people who are completely looking for something different, right? I want people who are coming to my product to look for a specific thing which the product has but are not able to find. So that could be something which can improve upon, and build a feature saying that, okay, people can find things much easier than the way which they're doing it. So that's how I do it. How about you?
Makes sense. Very similar. We also look at the clickstream a lot, primarily at the funnel metrics to see like where the customer is coming from, how are they utilizing the features, and where they're dropping. That also tells us like where we need to improve upon and stuff. Cool. Let me ask one more question, Sidhu. So you defined, let's say, for all of these things for your product, right? How often do you look back and see whether these metrics are correct, or do I want to define new metrics, or do I want to refine these current metrics to how the product is performing? How often do you do that?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I would also want to know how you do it, because I want to validate if I'm doing it in the right way or not. So normally what I do is, right, I have these OKRs defined, right? So we have this North Star, or the vision, sorry, not the North Star, but the vision for the product, right, which we defined. And there are OKRs which we want to reach for that quarter. So for people to understand what OKRs are, OKRs are objectives and key results. Objective is maybe getting to a specific goal, and key results are the measures of where you want to get to. So what I normally do is, once I define the metrics and have the objectives and OKRs for that quarter, I go and review if I'm moving towards the right place or not. If I'm not actually moving towards the right direction, that's where I go back and see if the metrics are giving me the right results or not, and then I adjust or pivot to make sure I change my product strategy to move towards the right direction. So I think that's the triggering point for me to see if the metrics which I'm tracking are the right metrics or not.
Makes sense. We have similar thought process as well, but I think we do it on an annual basis. So every annual year, right, we go to our metrics to say, hey, what is our target for the next financial year? And we continue to define initiatives that will help those metrics to like continually grow. And by end of the year, we'll probably go back and reevaluate, like how did we do for all of these metrics? Or is any of the metrics changing? And you might identify that whatever you do, some metrics might not change. It could be because the product is at a saturated level, or it could be because you have attained the market whatever you need. So at that point, we will reevaluate to say, okay, this metric might not be something that we want to continually grow. We can have that as a metric that we want to like stay at a certain place, and then define a new metric which we want to continually grow.
Yeah, that's right. So, funny, previously you were also talking about A/B testing and experimentation, right? So, I want to hear your thoughts on how do you do that, and like what are the different measures you take to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So A/B testing, typically for anyone who doesn't understand that, is let's say you're launching a new feature and you have a hypothesis to say at this place of this product, it could be good to give this button versus this button. Or let's say you want to give a specific content here versus a different content. what you typically try and do is build both of them and then show to the customers. What you will do, you'll probably choose like 10% of the customers who goes here and another 10% of the customers who go here, and measure the metric that you wanted to move. And whichever percentage of the customers had like a better conversion for the metric, and that is what you finally decide and launch as the product for the remaining 80 or the 90% of the customers as well. And even in this, we have one metric, which is our goal to say, hey, this is what we wanted to move. But at the same time, we also make sure, like Sidhu was explaining earlier, L1 and L2 metrics, right? Where we don't want these metrics to be disturbed, or we don't want these metrics to go wrong while the primary metric that we want to move is going well. What do you do, Sidhu?
Yeah, I'll give a funny example here. So I was actually I have a newsletter, right, where people I publish it every week and people come and read the newsletter. So I was doing an experiment for my newsletter where I was looking at the open rates when I have a newsletter without a smiley, and open rates with a smiley. And when I've done that for 6 weeks, I've seen that the open rates are 20% higher when you have a smiley at the title of the newsletter. So that's a really interesting way for me, right? So now I'll try to put a smiley so that actually makes people click my newsletter and read through it. So that's one of the way where we can see how we can improve the product by doing A/B testing.
Yep, that's true. A funny thing that I remembered was in YouTube also, if you see some of the titles that we see for the videos, right? Some of them will have a red dot. I don't know why. Without my knowledge, my attention goes there. Maybe because of the color, maybe because of the way they pasted it, etc. So the attention goes for the customer. So these are some of the hooks which will bring the customer into your content.
Yeah, that's right. Even for YouTube, we were doing a lot of A/B testing, right? So initially we were experimenting with the titles, right? Then we were experimenting with the thumbnails. Now we are experimenting with the content. So I think all of these are like a lot of different things which we can learn and improve our product and make it more and more better.
That's true.
Okay, funny. So it's been a very good, interesting discussion, man. Meatier discussion than the previous discussions about product metrics here. So also maybe we'll address another question here, right? Like product metrics or product execution is a very important interview segment which a product manager has to go through, right? So let's imagine the different interviews, what people go through as a product manager are product sense, product execution, and maybe behavioral. For product execution, right? So what do you think, what you suggest people should look at, and how should they basically prepare for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take an example, right? So I think one of the questions that I've seen online was, how would you measure the success of a Facebook like button? So this could be one of the question an interviewee gets. What I would suggest is going through the exact process what you talked about in this video. Like you talk about like having your vision, having a North Star metric, having a primary metric that you need to use to track the metric, to track the progress of your product, and then probably having L1 and L2 metrics that clearly tells that whatever you're driving towards is going right. I would highly encourage the interviewees to follow this process. Thinking of what the product is, defining the vision, etc., would clearly help them think through everything and give the right ideas and solutions for that specific product. What do you think, Sidhu?
Yeah, that's right. And also, this is not something that's just asked in the interview, right? This is what a product manager does every day, right? So he looks at metrics, he tries to make the product better and better. So I think this is the very key piece of information everybody has to understand if you want to become a product manager or managing the product.
That's true. Awesome. Sidhu, let's end the video with similar thing what we do every time, right? If there is two things that you want our viewers to take away from this video, what are those two things?
Yeah, when the first thing which I would say is like whenever I get confused about there are so many metrics, so many things, all of those things, right? I go back to the basics and I would say that whatever I do is to move the arrow towards the vision. So If it doesn't move that towards the vision, nothing matters for me. So whatever I define is to make sure I get closer to the vision of my company or the vision of my product. So that's the first takeaway which I take. And the second thing is, don't I'd say staring at dashboards and metrics doesn't give us anything. The main thing which people have to do is look at them, gather insights, and act on them. So these two are the biggest takeaways from my side.
Cool. On my end, what I could think of is the very first one is being data centric. So for every product manager, what I would highly recommend is whatever you do, having quantitative data would help you in like n number of ways. So be highly focused on the data. And the second one I could think of in terms of like the detailed metrics, right? Always have a metric that is customer centric first, and then another metric that is also focused on your company or how the company or the product is performing. So having a customer centric metric would always help you grow the product and eventually achieve whatever the product centric metrics that you want.
I love the
Great.
way which you put it, man. Yeah.
Awesome, Sidhu. Love the conversation. And whoever is watching, thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe. And give all of your feedback. We would love to take it and improve our videos. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody.